Welcome back to my channel. Today, we have been treated to a political communication where we see Rigathi Gachagua, the Madeira MP, talking about a reconciliation with President Uhuru Kenyatta. And in this video, I want to talk about the possibility of Central Kenya MPs allied towards President Uhuru Kenyatta, or rather allied towards William Ruto, moving an effort to reconcile the two leaders, Deputy President William Ruto and President Uhuru Kenyatta. But just before that, I want you to take a minute and listen to this video, because this is going to form the basis of my analysis.
If he has changed his heart and he has awakened to the political realities that he has lost the grip of this region and wants to engage with us, we are more than ready. And mostly we would want to discuss with him the stored projects for the roads, for water, and about reviving the economy. We think we can have a good discussion with the president, because in our view, that is what is most important, that he can use the remaining 11 months to redeem his image and get back his legacy on track. But if he is to call us to talk about abandoning William Ruto, we have no time and we are not available. That's not an option. If he is to call us to discuss about his succession, we are not available. We think he should do what President Kibaki did. Just retire peacefully and go home.
So don't be shocked to see me tomorrow seated with Kionjore. Don't be shocked to see me tomorrow seated with Mother Karua. Don't be shocked to see us sitting with Moses Kuria, because as a mountain, we must speak in one voice. And I'm happy because when Kionjore's team met, they have said the bare minimum. And the bare minimum, some of the bare minimums resonate with what we have always been saying, that there must be equity. One vote, one man, one shilling, one vote.
There are people in the inner circle of President Uhuru Kenyatta and also in the inner circle of Deputy President William Ruto who think that the two leaders should reconcile. And I want to ask a question here. Do you really think that President Uhuru Kenyatta cannot dine again with his deputy? And these are my 4 reasons why I think that Deputy President William Ruto can easily reconcile with his boss, President Uhuru Kenyatta. But just before I give you that, Rigathi Gachagua is not your ordinary politician. Actually, he is one of the politicians in the inner cycle of Deputy President William Ruto. So when he gave the ultimatums before actually meeting President Uhuru Kenyatta, he said some things in that clip, and he said that they are willing to meet the president, but unless they are going to talk about the development of the region, the Central Kenya region, the stalled projects according to him, and maybe some of the pledges that were supposed to have been redeemed by the government and they were not redeemed, but not to talk about succession politics. I want to believe and I want to know that Rigathi Gachagua was simply relaying a message to President Uhuru Kenyatta, a message from his currently party boss, William Ruto, who is also the patron of UDA. So that message was actually sent to President through Rigathi Gachagua. In the same clip, Kanini Kega, who is a President Uhuru Kenyatta ally and actually a pro-handshake MP, was also saying that in next few days to come, he's going to have a conversation with the other leaders, Mwangi Kionjuru, Martha Karua, and other Central Kenya MPs so that they can speak in one voice. And that is my reason number 1, that President Uhuru Kenyatta can reconcile with his deputy so that the region that he heads, the Central Kenya, can speak in one voice. The unity of the Central Kenya can only be achieved well enough if President Uhuru Kenyatta agrees or reconciles with this deputy. My reason is because Central Kenya is teared into two. There is a pro-Tanga that is led by Alice Wahome, Ndindi Nyoro, Rigathi Gachagua, Kimani Chungwa, Mithika Linturi, and others. And they seem to be so angry with the president that the president had a handshake with Raila Odinga, someone who they believe did not contribute in forming that government, and they call themselves that they are the orphans of Jubilee. Actually, they normally say that it is only Jubilee Party that frequently hosts parliamentary group meeting. I don't even remember whether Jubilee have ever had a comprehensive parliamentary Jubilee meeting. Because the last few meetings that we're having was either to remove someone from a position in the Senate or remove someone from a position in the National Assembly. Or maybe to pass a government agenda like the BBI. So when President will come to realization that unless he dines with his deputy, the mountain is going to be torn into two. And the best way to do that is to make sure that all those MPs that have been against him by supporting his deputy speak in one voice. It is until they speak in one voice that the president will have the audacity to actually dictate, at least even if not dictate a bigger percentage, but again have a direction where the water coming from the mountain will flow through. Will the water flow to Nyanza and endorse Raila Odinga for presidency, Lake Victoria, or will the water flow to the mountains of the Rift Valley, to the plains of Rift Valley, and pick up deputy as the man, as his successor? So succession politics is actually concentrated on the Central Kenya vote, and you cannot denounce that. Another reason why I think that it is not impossible for Uhuru to merge with his deputy is because of Ruto's humility. If there is one thing that Ruto have ever tried, is not to go confrontational with his boss. And rather, let me say, some of the Jubilee bigwigs, the Tujus and David Murade, they really tried to provoke him. And actually in a recent interview, Murade spoke about how their role was to make sure that they chased William Ruto from the party, and maybe they successfully did that. But Ruto have always stood his ground. Yes, we know that the difference where the disagreement came through is when President felt like, one, his deputy was not following his agenda. So, like the BBI. Two, that his deputy had started early campaigns and had actually left the government agenda. Some of the pledges that they promised to achieve to Kenyans. So those are the two things, maybe, for my own understanding. If there are other political reasons, maybe. But what has been the public space and what president has ever confessed is that huyu jamaa ana tanga-tanga, and that's where the word tanga-tanga came through. So he actually felt that his deputy is much focusing on early campaigns for his 2022 bid, but is not concentrating on the President Uhuru Kenyatta's legacy. So that is why a handshake with Raila Odinga was a project legacy. But they have never gone confrontational. And I believe that if Ruto calls President tonight, President will receive that call and they are going to talk. third reason, guys, is that the fall of BBI. So if you realize, for the last 3 years since the much hyped handshake on March 9th, 2018, that is where the president fell out with his deputy, because William Ruto became parallel with the BBI and actually publicly opposed the BBI project, because, and from the BBI project is where he stemmed the hustler nation narrative. Actually, it started with the dynasty. I think it started with the dynasty versus hustler. So from that point, I think that is what made Uhuru become more angry with his deputy, because he felt like through the hustler narrative, it is setting a class war between the haves and the have-nots. So actually, if you look at how President was reacting to the BBI, how Ruto was reacting to the BBI, he mentioned a couple of some things, that it is not about the leadership and all that. And when he was crafting the hustler narrative was to counter the BBI, if you remember very well. Because the hustler narrative is that we are going to focus on economy of the people down here, while them through the BBI, they are focusing on positions and the tribal kingpins. If you remember that conversation. So without the BBI, the confrontation between the two of them will not be there. Without that confrontation, it will take some time, maybe even some 2 months or so, they can have a talk about how to move way forward. And the reason why that is very possible is because when they spoke about the BBI, and Uhuru actually said that he was not going to appeal, although they're just going to appeal sections without the Building Bridges initiative, then they're back to factory settings before the handshake 2018. So yes, and of course, Uhuru have never mentioned anywhere that in the handshake with Raila Odinga, he was supposed to support Raila Odinga for presidency in 2022. So he has never gone public with that, and that is why also he has never gone public with Raila Odinga in Central. In fact, they have never. Raila have taken Uhuru to Kisumu, to Nyanza, to other parts of in Kisii, and all those places. But Uhuru have never taken time to go with Raila in Central Kenya, even to host a project, to launch a project together, or maybe just to show the unity from that end. So Uhuru is not tied that he has promised Raila something. So why they can easily come back is because now it could be the time they could revisit Me 10, You 10. Uhuru Kumi, Ruto Kumi. And if they bring the Uhuru Kumi, Ruto Kumi, the mountain will be united. My last point is the Big Four agenda. This is the list, and when I was doing my research on this, I thought that if you listen to William Ruto, his counter narrative to Raila's handshake with the President Uhuru Kenyatta is that Raila became destructive, distracting the president from the Big Four agenda. So that is the onslaught that the hustler team have actually painted on Raila. Handshake, or Raila's existence, or Raila's presence in the government, if perhaps he's in the government. And so even after the BBI ruling, they actually came out, and if you look at the social media handles of Deputy President and some Tanga allies, they were telling the president that now it is time to focus to the Big Four agenda. So because they realized that the president no longer talks about BBI, it is very possible now that William Ruto can share lunch, can have a conversation with his boss on the Big Four agenda. And why? He might really consider that because there is something you cannot water down. that when it comes to his campaigns, he must tell Kenyans what he has done. So, he must ride on the government projects by the virtue of him being part of that government. Whether he felt like he was neglected or so, but he was part of that government. So when he goes back to the president and helps the president achieve the Big Four agenda before next year in August, then he will have a situation where he can make his hustler nation narrative anchored on top of the Big Four agenda. Like telling Kenyans here, we have achieved the Big Four agenda with the president, but on top of the Big Four, this is what we are going to do just to make sure that we bring back the economy to where it is. So guys, those are my points. And what do you think about the possibility of Ruto working with the president yet again?